Hey, 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 this is Natasha Nurse. I'm the host of Sisters on Fire IRL series, and I'm really excited to be speaking with Sable. She's an educator and speaker. She created Real Brown Girls in 2014, an online community of over 35,000 women. Sable has become an in demand thought leader, creating a new narrative among professional women of color. When she's not working on Real Brown Girls, she can be found serving as a county program director for a statewide education based nonprofit in New Jersey. From sitting as a panelist at the United Nations for the International Day of Peace to presenting at a science and education conference in Cairo, Egypt, this dynamic woman is continuing to do the work of a seasoned change agent. During Sable's early career, she served as a secondary school educator. During her tenure, she achieved the highest reading growth for her school, in addition to increasing state test scores for both reading and math, resulting in the school being saved from closing. Sable has always been a passionate contributor to her community, whether helping to shape the lives of impressionable students as an educator or receiving the Temple University Annie Hyman Award for Community Service. It is clear that Sable is devoted to the advancement of others. She's a New York native, born in Brooklyn, and holds a bachelor's degree in African American Studies and French from Temple University and a Master of Education from University of Pennsylvania. So without further ado, how are you, Sable?
I was not prepared for you to read that,
Ah!
but I'm doing well.
You forgot all the really cool things that you do in life.
It's like, oh, she's really reading the entire thing.
Yep. It's important. Why? Because I think so many of us, especially women of color, we forget to like give ourselves props, right? Because I think I don't know if people took the Kendrick Lamar song "Be Humble" too seriously, but like ultimately in life, we have to be our number one cheerleader, and a big part of that is continually recognizing all the great work that we've done and continue to do. So bravo to you and everyone listening, because you know you did all that, but like everyone listening doesn't know you did all that. So I
That's
think that
true. That's very true. Thank you. I
I think
wasn't ready.
there's great value for that. But first, let's take a step back. Then, how did you become the woman you are today? How did you create Real Brown Girls?
How did I become the woman I am today? Oh, Natasha, you were laying it on thick. Honestly, I have to give credit to my parents, and I have to give credit to family members, and I have to give credit to the community as a whole. I was surrounded by a lot of love and people who were just going to push you to the next level. Even if you were content, there was someone in your ear to go, well, what if you tried this? And what if you did this? And you could do this better. So when you have those kind of people around you at all times, it's kind of hard not to do something
Mm,
with that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And how did kind of being a person who says, you know what, I'm going to connect over 35,000 women together. How did that happen?
I would love to sit here and say I started in 2014 with a business plan and a long-term vision and a 5 year. Yeah, none of that was the part of the plan. So I when Real Brown Girls initially started, it was an Instagram profile that was putting up very pretty pictures, and then I had to realize that's not my ministry. And
Mm,
although I'm into fashion and I'm into all things beautiful, I'm not the girl that's going to beat your face to the guys and help you get dressed to
mm-hmm,
go out. So I had to stay true to what came naturally to me, which was information and
mm-hmm,
the sharing of information and the sharing of information that would help you better yourself in whatever shape or form. So a lot of friends came to me for career related advice. So that's kind of the pivot that RBG took very early on.
mm-hmm.
And then it grew and started a Facebook group. I actually recently closed that down, but it grew from a profile to a website to sold out in-person events to national events. So I grow with it. I've been growing with it. But I think
Mhm.
that the numbers have grown because I'm the girl next door. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna sit here and pretend I have it all together or to project this image of perfectionism. It's like, no, like, this is what I know. Let's share. What do you know? Share that with us. And I think that's why people have gravitated towards it the way that they have.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Very cool. Okay. And what have you learned? I guess what has been maybe the most meaningful thing that you've learned through the process of creating RBG?
The most meaningful, I would say that people are craving community.
Interesting. Okay. Why
And
why do you say that?
I think I don't think people ever stopped craving community. I think that we began, and by we, I just mean Western society, began to put so much emphasis on technology that we forgot the human element. So even
Mm,
with the creation of all these apps and programs and things, although they're extremely innovative and extremely helpful, and it's the reason why RBG exists, at some point people need to go offline
mhm, mhm,
and
absolutely.
touch and connect in a real way. So if I've learned nothing else, is the fact that people are craving community. They're craving a safe space. They're craving real information, and
Mhm,
if you provide that, they'll come.
absolutely. Okay. And what were some of the events that you've put on in real time in real life that people attended and really loved connecting in person with?
So there have been networking events where they weren't your traditional networking event. We did curated seating. So you filled out a
Mm,
questionnaire before you came, and depending on the answers to the questions, we sat you in a general vicinity where other people who were looking for the same things were near you. Because
mm,
I do not like attending mixers because you don't know anyone in the room. Depending on the mixer, there could be upwards of 75 to 100 people in the room, and you might have to introduce yourself 30, 40 times before you find the person you're looking for, even if that ever happens. So, a
mhm,
way to make it more efficient, so those did really, really well. This past November, God, that feels so long ago. This past November, we did a brainstorming session. I've attended many events that had panels, and one I love panels. I also dislike
mhm,
panels because I think with the panel setup, oftentimes we don't realize the person that has the answer isn't on the stage. They're actually in the audience, but
mm.
you would never know that because they don't have the mic. In that particular setting, they're not the one with the quote unquote prestige. So wanting to do something different, this past November we did a brainstorming session where I told them you are all the panelists and I'm going to put you all in stations and we're going to rotate and you're going to figure out what you need because all this information is in the room. You just need the opportunity to talk to each other. So I'm gonna
Interesting.
facilitate the conversation, but please don't look at me like I'm Dr. Phil. Like, no, we all are Dr. Phil right now. So
Mm,
just trying to do things a little bit differently so when people leave, they have either a piece of information that they didn't have before or they have a legitimate connection to someone that they did not
mhm.
before.
I love it. Okay. And when it came to building this, what have your this platform, what has been like the best resources that you've used to know how to grow the social media, how to develop these events, how to build your own network?
So as far as the social media goes, I've just focused on putting out consistent quality content.
Mhm.
A lot of people have asked me, well, how do I get X amount of followers or X amount of likes? And I tell them, if you want those type of answers, I really highly recommend you find a social media coach. I'm just not the person for that. But
Mhm.
what I can say is no matter what social media coach you might hire, at the end of the day, it still boils down to content. The social
Mhm.
media coach might, be able to tell you you have better conversions on a Thursday morning at 10, but they're not going to put together the content for you. That's still on you. So,
Mhm.
as far as growing that, I would say content. As far as events and putting events together will go, I would say that I have always been extremely observant. So from being younger till now, when I attend an event, I'm taking notes. Like, oh, that was
Mm.
a really good idea. I want to find a way to do that where it makes sense for me. Or, ooh, that was a good idea, but the execution was flawed. How can I fix the execution if I try to implement that myself? So,
Mhm.
as far as events, it's been observation, it's been trial and error. Luckily, these trial and errors have all gone well so far. Gonna
Yeah.
knock on some wood that that continues, but it's been, I think about the event from start to finish as the attendee. What would I like? What would I dislike? What would I need?
Mhm.
And how to make sure that that's addressed.
Okay. And how do you balance this big platform that you're growing in addition to your work as an educator and kind of a community change agent?
I say no.
Eh.
Um, I I'm not one of those people who will tell you, I'll sleep when I'm dead or whatever that saying is. I think
Mhm.
absolutely foolish. I'm like, no, I get 8 hours every night. And if it's a really good night, I'm out for 10. Okay. Like I sleep like a
Mhm.
bear. But I think it's for me, I think balance is relative. Like there are definitely weeks where things don't go as planned. There are definitely weeks where I'm like, all right, you bit on more than you can chew. But that doesn't happen regularly because I'm all about, all right, what's the end goal? Does this align? If not, I'm not doing it. If it does
Mm.
align, is now the time to do it or can it happen later? Either way,
Mhm.
what are the steps to take? So I look at something before jumping in. I don't just jump into something. So I think that
Mm.
type of planning that I have by nature in my head, like I naturally start planning. Like, okay, well, this one needs that takes 2 weeks. That's going to take 3. That takes 4. Oh, that timeline is too short. You can't push that timeline back. And if they say no, I'm like, all right, well, then I can't do it. So
Mm.
I
Gotcha.
think because of how my brain calculates the calendar naturally, I rarely put myself in a situation where it feels like too much.
Mhm. And how has the entrepreneurial journey with our, Real Brown Girls been in comparison to what you thought it would be?
The thing is, when I first started it started from such an organic place. I didn't have expectations.
Mhm.
So because I didn't have expectations, oftentimes when I sit back and think about it, I'm like, wow, you've actually done XYZ because there's a flow that's happening here that I'm not forcing. And I think I have that luxury not to force certain things simply because I have a 9 to 5. So
Mhm.
I could play around with things because RBG is not my bread and butter. So if something
Mhm.
completely falls flat, that has nothing to do with my bills for the month. So
Mhm.
I think that because I didn't have expectations of my entrepreneurial journey, I'm 100% satisfied with my entrepreneurial journey. One thing I can say is that everyone projects onto you certain things when they hear you've started something. And
Mhm.
it's always interesting to see what assumptions are made. And
Mhm.
when you answer them, for me at least, frankly, like, actually, I don't identify with that at all, then it's like,
Mhm.
oh, you're not one of us. And it's like, it's not that I'm not one of you. I'm just operating very differently. But that's okay with me because I'm comfortable that way.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Okay, very cool. And how would you say your professional career, your entrepreneurial journey has been affected being a woman and being a person of color?
As far okay, so to date, I don't think that being a woman has affected me in a negative way. I
Mhm.
also don't think being a woman of color has affected me in a negative way. I say that also saying, well, I say that under the context that the field that I'm in, as far as education goes, it's primarily women anyway.
Mhm.
So if I were in finance or banking or something else, I might have a very different answer for you. But
Mhm.
where I started my career, everyone's practically a girl to begin with, and
Mhm.
it's no shock to see a person of color.
Mhm.
So I haven't been negatively affected in that sense. I will say I've experienced more ageism than anything else.
Mm. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. What do you mean by that?
Simply because, well, I'm not going to tell you I have a head of gray hair, but let's just say you don't have to come close to see the grays. You can see you can see if you have decent eyesight, you can see them from far away. There's lots of
Mhm.
them there. But I appear a lot younger than I am. I'm definitely a millennial age bracket, but folks
Mhm.
still think I'm like 20, 22. And I'm like,
Mm.
"Oh, I would love to be 22 again because I could go out 3 nights in a row and not be dead." So I think in my career thus far, ageism has been more
Mhm.
has had more of an impact simply because when someone just looks at me, they're like, "Oh, you're so cute." And in
Mm.
my mind, I'm like, "Oh, here we go again. Here we go
Mm.
again."
Gotcha. Okay. And with Real Brown Girls, did you ever get any pushback for intentionally at least building something for women of color or no?
I have received pushback in very minor
Mhm.
situations, nothing super major where it was like, "Oh, if this was for all women, I could have signed this six-figure contract." Like, nothing anywhere near that
Mhm.
dramatic, and I think because of where I'm centered, where I'm located, there's so many things specifically for women of color. There's so many things specifically for urban kids and Latino kids and, et cetera, that it's not
Mhm.
taboo. If I were somewhere else in the country,
Mhm.
I might receive more pushback for that. I will say I have received pushback for saying women of color in different moments online by
Mm.
individuals who believe that women of color is specifically for Black women. So there have been instances where a picture might have gone up on the profile or a quote by someone, maybe an Indian woman or a woman
Mhm.
who identifies as a Hispanic or whatever would go up on the profile. And then there would be someone in the comments to say, like, she's not Black though. And then I say, well, I said women of color, not Black.
Mm.
The majority of the audience do identify as Black women. I identify as a Black American, but it does say women of color. So I've received pushback in that sense, but I take it as a moment to educate. Women of
Mhm.
color means women of color.
Mhm.
If you want it to mean Black women, you just say Black women. And that's okay.
Oh, I appreciate your candor.
Like, I'm not even trying to be difficult here. Like, I taught
Yeah.
English. I'm just going by the literal words and what they mean. If you want it to mean specifically Black women and only Black women, then you need to say Black women. The minute you say women of color, you're incorporating colored women who might not identify as Black.
Mhm, mhm, absolutely. Yeah, people have to stop making assumptions, especially in these times, given even how like gender fluidity is
Yeah,
very right expansive and how people identify with races and it's I think ultimately we need to be more forward thinking and out of the box as opposed to saying one is only this because nothing is only one thing in
exactly.
in our universe.
And it's interesting you mentioned gender fluidity. Like, I haven't had anyone push back on that because I said
Mhm.
women. So if you self-identify as a woman or non-binary, that's not I don't have no closed doors for that.
Mhm,
So if that's
mhm,
the box you check, by all means, like come to us. I didn't say like cisgender women of color. Like I didn't break it down like that. So
mhm,
um yeah, but the pushback it's been minimal, but it has happened in moments. But it's not that I'm never not prepared for it. Uh,
mhm.
it's just more so I'm like, all right, here goes one of those teaching moments that I used to have in the classroom. Like actually, there are more than two races. Like the world is
Mhm,
not just black and white. There are other boxes that are allowed. And some of those other boxes happen to be of color.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it
Absolutely.
it happens, but it'll continue to happen and I'll continue to have my teaching moments.
Gotcha. Okay. And obviously, everyone listening can hear how amazing and straight shooter of a woman you really are. So that's what makes you a sister on fire. But I would love to hear from you. How would you define the term sister on fire?
You know, I'm so dramatic. I definitely pictured like this dramatic green screen with like fire coming from the bottom and someone
Mm,
just like strutting through in her fiercest heels and like whatever outfit she feels comfortable in. Um,
hmm
and everyone just screaming, "Yes, girl, yes." But so when you said sister, immediately like that's what I saw. But I think if I had to define it, it would just be someone who's comfortable being herself,
mm,
no matter the room she's in.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. Okay. That's a very interesting definition. So, in your life, either personal or professional, who were women that lived up to that definition that you just stated?
um, I would say my mother.
Mhm.
My mother, someone you are going to get her, no matter what room she's in. You're going
Mhm.
you're going to get her. One of my teachers turned choir directors turned honorary aunt growing
Mm.
she was so poised, but she was still down to earth. And I
Mhm.
adored that about her because you knew you couldn't get over on her, but she could still give out a laugh from her diaphragm. So you knew
Mm.
like you didn't have to be super, super proper because if it's funny, I don't care where we are, it's funny. Um,
Mhm.
so she was someone that I definitely like to this day I can send her a text message like I need some help, and she's like, "What you want, girl?" Uh, and then one of my professors at Temple, she just lit up a room and she didn't have to say anything. Like her
Mhm.
energy was just, it's unmatched. And she could sit there and you just want to know, well, is it the soap? Was it the lotion? What did you use? Because you're radiant. You're radiant,
Mm.
and everyone can pick that up on you. And I had another professor at Temple like, you think I'm a straight shooter? My God, Natasha. You just had to be prepared, but she had high expectations for herself, high expectations for her students, for her colleagues,
Mm.
everyone around her. And it did not matter if the mayor was in the room, the president was in the room, the chief of police. It did not matter who was in the room. Her
Mhm.
expectations were not going to drop or go any higher.
Mm.
They were going to stay. Um, they were going to stay in her comfort zone. I mean, her comfort zone was high, but she didn't change. She didn't. They didn't. These women didn't code switch. This is how they
Mhm.
talked. They didn't change their outfits depending on where they were going. If they preferred kente, that's what they wore. If they wanted a tweed suit, that's what they wore. So I appreciated seeing that you could be you as a
Mhm.
black woman, no matter what space you were in. You didn't have to cower. You didn't have to say yes, sir, step off the sidewalk to because folks were pat. You didn't have to do any of that.
Mm. I love it. Okay, wonderful. And I guess just last minute kind of questions would be first for anyone listening, and they are trying to build something like you're saying, and not necessarily like, hey, I'd like advice on how, like you're saying, like, how do I go from 1,000 to 2,000 or whatever kind of followers, but like, how do you build a community? I think I'd love to hear your advice on like, how do you work towards unifying and giving women or community kind of a space where we can learn, we can grow, we can activate, and we can also promote this and make it go bigger. And then the next question would be, just if people want to get in touch with you or you have upcoming events, please share all the details.
So to build community, I always say that first starts with you.
Mm,
Whenever I hear someone say they don't have any female friends, that's a red flag for me
mm-hmm,
because it means there is something that you're giving out that folks are picking up on where they run away. Like you might think you're the one running away, but they're really running away from you. So I think the first part, it has to come from a genuine space. No,
mm-hmm,
not because you want the shot on the gram, because everyone does it for the gram now. So
mm-hmm,
not because you want the shot on the gram, but because you really care about providing a space for women.
mm-hmm,
Because not everything grows as big as 2190. Not
mm-hmm,
everything grows as big as Oprah Super Soul Sunday. Not that you
mm-hmm,
can't, not that you won't, but if your only goal is to have something mega and huge, you have to ask yourself, are you doing it for the right reasons? So, to someone who is interested, I would say, make sure you check in with you to see what are your intentions behind it? Are they pure? Are they organic? And then start with who you have around you.
mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as a monthly meetup in a coffee shop, and it's just you and two of your friends. And then the next month, you encourage them to bring a friend. And then the next
Mm-hmm.
month, everyone brings them. Before you know it, you could have 30 women meeting regularly, talking about whatever you all decide the topic is. So don't be afraid to start with don't be afraid to start with the people you already have. And of course, you'll always see, I want to mention this, you always see, friends will support strangers before they support you. If that's the case, then we got to network and we got to get some new friends. Um, and, you just start with one. You don't have to have 50, but you just start with one. But I would say, first things first is, what is your goal behind it? Why do you want to do it in the first place? Is it just for fame and fortune? If that's the case, it's not going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose behind it? And being willing to start with one person
I love
and
it.
inviting someone and going from there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as your second question, where to find me, I am on Instagram at Real Brown Girls. Facebook is Real Brown Girls. Twitter is Real Brown Girls. There's no special spellings. And you
Mm-hmm.
can go to the website, Real Brown Girls, and you can sign up for the newsletter. There
Mm-hmm.
for upcoming events, I would say follow us on, so I'm saying us like it's not just me. Follow Real Brown Girls on social media and sign up for the newsletter because there will be events coming down the pipeline. That's the newsletter is the best spot. They find out things first. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely, and I don't bombard your inbox, I promise you. I'm not in there every day or even every week. Sometimes we skip months. So I respect the inbox. But yeah, newsletter, social media would be the best place to get in contact, especially if you are in the New York area and you want to attend a future event.
I love it. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. And just last minute, maybe, is there anything that people don't know about you that you would love to share? And you're like, oh, people don't know this about me. I should share this.
I get asked, in like different icebreaker situations, and I'm always like, I don't have anything. I don't because people whenever I hear other people's answers, it's always something crazy, like actually I can backflip with blindfolds on, or they're like, I'm actually a secret Olympian. I competed in the Junior Olympics and won gold. And then I'm sitting here like, I'm not that fantastic.
I think that people may or may not know. I don't know that you're like secretly going to be a comedian in 5 years. Maybe
Oh,
something like that. Like,
everybody, they say that, Natasha. They're like, you should have been a comedian. I'm like, yeah, I'm good 101, but I feel like on the stage, they'd be like, girl, get off. Just leave now. And I say, you know what? You're absolutely right. Have a great night. I'll make sure they refund your ticket. So, but
oh,
if I could have like a, not a recurring role, but just like a guest spot on one of these comedies to see if it would actually be funny on a,
mhm.
I would do that. I would do that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Good. That's your secret share that like
That's my
you
secret
on
sharing.
the yeah, like on the down low you want to be, all about the Hollywood and
I
be on
just
a
want one
sitcom.
episode that Imma have my grandmother record and we have it for life, like, just one. I don't want
Aw.
that red carpet life.
Sable, you are too funny, and you are definitely a straight shooter. I love it, and I appreciate you just taking the time to share your story and sharing your wisdom and keeping it 100. Because I think that in these trying times in media, in life, it's important for people to just keep it real and just share. How did they become who they are? And what worked, what didn't work, and this is who they are in their complete authentic self. So I greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a sister on fire, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Talk to you soon. Bye.